Hello and welcome to another rolling road test of a car that nobody asked for. We have a Skoda Felicia. Yes, finally. And this isn't just any Skoda Felicia. Most Skoda Felicias are a 1.3. This bad boy here, complete with front fog lights, is a 1.6. And that means 190, no it doesn't, it means 74 horsepower. 74 horsepower from the factory, from its Volkswagen engine, an 8-valve, 1.6 litre Volkswagen-based engine. I believe it's an AEE, but I'm not sure. The specs are on the screen now, because I'm getting good at this. So, yeah, that's the specs. An interesting one, this, because this is the kind of car where people are going to see that it's a 1.6 and see that its book figure is 74 horsepower or 75 PS, if we're talking metric. And they're going to say, well, that's rubbish because it's a 1.6. And that is massively, massively oversimplifying things. It's not about the headline figure. Yes, it is peak power. Of course, it's peak power. That's what we're measuring. But it doesn't tell you everything about the car. Now, I've never driven this car. Some people have driven this car. This car, if anyone has recognised the sticker on it, is none other, nearly fell over, none other than Status Slow's Skoda Felicia. This is one of the actual cars that took part in the 24-hour live stream stroke driving challenge thing we did the other day to raise money for Sophie's legacy. And it went exceptionally well. Thank you very much everyone who helped and donated. This is the car that came in third place. It beat a Subaru Impreza Turbo. It did. It did. It did an average of 44 miles an hour over, well, over 24 hours, but it probably did about 22, maybe 22 and a half constant hours of driving, non-stop. And it performed admirably. It's very much not made for that sort of thing. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to see it rip the dyno out of the ground, such as the torque produced at the wheels of this thing. So I mentioned about the peak power. The peak power on this car from the book is, and I've checked this, and it seems insane, but I think it's right, it's produced at 4,500 revs. That is very diesely. That's really low, but then apparently this thing tops out at 5,500 revs. Peak torque, 3,500 revs. This is not a car made to rev. It is made for low engine speed, sort of, low down torque and mid-range flexibility. Why? Why would you do this to a 1.6? Why would you not? You could have a Citroen Saxo VTR, has 90 horsepower. Plenty of 8 valves have more. Didn't the Golf GTI have 115 to start with? Was that 1.6 or was it 105? I don't know. Am I right? Am I wrong? Maybe. Either way. So what gives? Why does this car only produce 75, let's call it, 75 horsepower, considering it's a 1.6 from 1998? Is that not exceptionally low? Yeah, kind of. That's pretty much the same as what a 1.6 Sierra used to put out in the mid-80s. It does seem low. It does. But some cars aren't built with peak horsepower in mind. You need to think about this. This engine is not designed to make high horsepower figures. It's designed to be efficient. It's designed to be durable, very understressed, reliable, and be easy to drive. It's also designed to be able to run on a myriad of different fuels. So this could probably run on like 91 RON or 89 RON, or it could run on some really awful quality fuels because the timing is probably so far retarded. I don't actually know, but it's probably not pushed out too far. The cam, I imagine, is exceptionally mild. If it doesn't want to rev past, well, if the limiter's at 5,500 revs, who knows what it's actually going to peak at? 4.5 according to the book figures. It's not designed to rev. Now this means the car is really understressed. I think there is a very real chance with this car and its 90-odd thousand miles on the clock, I think this might hit the book figures. Volkswagen engines do tend to kind of, I wouldn't say they go performing above and beyond like some of the engines we've had on it, but they do tend to be there or thereabouts. I've had a few where they've not quite hit it, but like the 1.9 TDIs, the 1.8 turbos, the Golf GTI Mark IIs, the 1.8s, they're all there or thereabouts. They don't really struggle. So I think this might be about there. I don't think it's going to pull any trees down, but I think there's every chance this thing's going to do what it's meant to do. Let's find out.
Place your bets now!
Right, let's see how we did. Certainly didn't feel like I went very high with that. Oh! Oh! Wow, okay, interesting, very interesting. So it does indeed, this is 4,500 revs here, and it does pretty much get to there and just go, Ugh. It is exceptionally healthy before that, but the numbers we're looking at, wow, it is not just a Peugeot 106 and a Citroen Saxo that does silly things on the dyno. Look at that, that's impressive. To be honest with you, it's not entirely surprising, because if you've got a car like this where they've underquoted the numbers on purpose to keep the insurance down and to make it look gerable and not fast, and basically the opposite, they want to appeal to a certain type of demographic, people who don't want to go fast, they want to be sensible. But they could have said it had 81 horsepower if it really did. I suspect it probably was about 74 originally, and it's just loosened up a little bit. Either that or the owner, Mr. Pink, has been doing things. £105 foot at 3.5. It is supposed to be at 3.5, but it's supposed to be 99. It's made a little bit. I think it might. I think that'll get up to the 82, 83 mark. Damn, it's beaten Dump It. That's not good. And it's beaten the Furio. It hasn't beaten past the Picasso yet. Run number 2. Are we ready? Oh, it's exactly the same. This time I went all the way to the limiter, which is here. It's got weird. It's got a soft cut limiter. It doesn't go. It just goes like a diesel, and it is at 5.5. So he was exactly right. And it stops. This is like textbook. So it stops pulling at 4.5. Which is exactly what the book says it does. The peak torque is, well, the peak torque this time was at 2.9, but it's because it's had a bit of a hiccup there. Normally it would be at about 3.5. It's doing, yeah, it's doing exactly what they said it would, but except for this. So the number we're looking at here, this is what it's just put out at the wheels. This is the calculated losses. I'm going to go into this in a proper dyno video another time, but basically it adds that to that. That gives that figure there, but that figure there is susceptible to things like air pressure, air temperature, all sorts of variables, other variables that can affect the actual outcome. So it runs the power figure through a correction factor. There are a few different correction factors. DIN is actually the one that does, I believe it's the one that does PS, but it's basically the metric system that does, it's what manufacturers use, because it includes things on the engine like the alternator and, you know, power steering pump, ancillaries, things like that. SAE is just the engine on its own on a test bench, which I can run it through SAE, but there's no point because that's an even bigger guess. And when you run it, that number there through this, which takes all the variables into account, which I can't even affect, I can't change any of it, I can't even tell it it's a different temperature. I keep seeing some online at the moment where they do one run and it's like 10 degrees or something like that, and then the second run they go, oh, we've remapped your car, mate, and all of a sudden it's 15 degrees hotter in the workshop on the same day. So wow, that's some climate change. But that would bump this up. Oh, cooling fan's just going. So that number there is that number once it's been corrected. This will be pretty close to what the actual engine is doing if you were to take it out and stick it on a bench. And that is quite impressive. There's no point revving it again. I think it's getting too hot. I think that's what this is. We'll get a bit of heat soak. But it's done 81 twice, so the answer is well, it's done 81 and 105 pound-foot twice, so the answer is 81 and 105 pound-foot. It's pretty much it. So I'm just looking again at this status slow dyno graph, and this is the one where I ended it early because I just thought, well, I'm not gonna, you know, I don't know. That was the first run. I don't know how far I'm going to go, so let's not go too nuts with it. And then the second one, I let it rip until it hit the limiter, which was about here. But the interesting thing is that it's peaking power at 4.5, but then it's just going flat. And that is almost like it's restricted. Like, you know, almost like the throttle isn't fully open, or there's something holding it back, because the hardware on that engine, the setup that engine has, it wouldn't do that. It would naturally go up and kind of, it would probably go up to like the 85, 87, maybe even 90 and come back down. This is natural here, but it should have gone up and come down, unless the cam's worn. I mean, that's the only other possibility. I don't know what the camshafts are like on those. It could be a worn camshaft. No, it can't be a worn camshaft. Look at the power figure. Yeah, so something's going on there. It's producing more than it's supposed to. It is producing it at the points that it's supposed to, both in terms of torque and power, but it flatlines above 4.5 right up to the limiter. It looks deliberate. I mean, is that engine held back? Because I mean, don't forget, that engine was in basically that engine is a development of the one that was in the Golf driver, like the Mark II Golf, and that made 75 horsepower. And you were telling me all these years later, with all these advancements and this much newer fuel injection system and everything that the Skoda's got of a car that's over 10 years newer, that it didn't make any more power? Or maybe it did, and they just pegged it back. Conspiracy. So that's 81 from the status slow Skoda, which is actually quite impressive, considering it's supposed to be here, and it's actually here. It's supposed to be above dump it, which isn't supposed to be there. But it's actually above a Saxo Furio, which it's supposed to be below, even if it's only by 1 horsepower. Now, I'm not going to put a new card on here today. I might put one in here, like this one, because I'm going to rejig the board soon. I'm going to make it magnetic, because at the moment it's not, because it's aluminium. Yeah, I'm going to make it magnetic, and then we can put things on properly and move them about, because at the moment these are stuck on, which is, I've not thought that through at all. But yeah, status slow Skoda, 81 horsepower, and that means it is 7 horsepower, I think. Yes, 7 horsepower plus 7 bonus points above the book figure. And it raised money for charity.